Awesome. We are live. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty good. How you doing, Brendan?
Pretty good. Had some back pain the last couple days. Went to a chiropractor and feeling a little bit better, but yeah, not as good as some of these guys we're going to talk about pulling off some major upsets in the Roundtable tournament.
Yeah, we had a few upsets. One big shocker that we'll get to in just a moment, but a couple along the way, and then a lot of the matches we talked about with the other guys. I think they happened as we expected, but yeah, a couple of upsets. So yeah, if you want to get into quadrant A, are you? Can you take a look at my screen?
Yeah, I can make you the host real fast so that you can share.
Let me see. I'm making do it right here. There we go.
Awesome. So we are looking here at quadrant A, and we had Bart Childers take out Raymond Baroy and George Fry taking out Dustin Downey. Pretty chalky in the very beginning. That'll be a heck of a matchup, that Bart versus George.
Yeah. And then the other guys, Ian Moran and Kieran Stevens, Owen pulled that one off, and Grayson Rogers was able to knock off Adam Zacher. So, yeah, but you mentioned it. I think we all pretty much agreed in that first video that this was probably going to be the week 2 matchups, and I think we were correct. Bart Childers and George Fry will definitely be the match of round 2 to keep an eye on. And like we said, the winner of that match will probably go on to, if not win the whole tournament, at least advance pretty far. So that'll be a good one to watch.
For sure. And I am sticking with my George Fry pick, but I know Sapun is picking Bart with his incredible form he's been on lately, so good luck to both players. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and go with George on that one as well. And then with Grayson, he played a pretty good game, so I'll go with Grayson to pull that off. So I think the next round will be George versus Grayson.
Yeah, I'll take Owen on that one.
Okay. He's very good too, so that one will be a good coin flip. But quadrant B, pretty standard there as well. I will say Guillermo and Gary had their first matchup, and they were halfway through the matchup, and a glitch or something occurred to where they both got off. I think one was showing round 7 and the other was showing round 6, and there was some confusion. And Gary was up quite a bit on Guillermo, but they both agreed to do another game to cancel and jump into another game. So Guillermo did pull off the second game, but nearly an upset there.
Wow. Good job, Gary.
Khalil pulled off his match. Jeremy Cooper Swerber handled Leonard pretty easily. And then Michael McLennan had the win over Rebecca. That was another good matchup there. But Michael came out victorious. So week 2's got Guillermo and Michael squaring off. I'm going to take Guillermo in that matchup. And then Jeremy and Khalil, I think they're both great players, and I think it'll come down to a couple of key states, but I think Jeremy Cooper Swerve will pull that one off.
Awesome. Yeah, getting some love for Jeremy in the house. Jeremy's been playing pretty good. Khalil, those are two very decent, even players. Guillermo should probably beat Michael. I have actually never played Michael, so I'm happy as a fellow commissioner that he did win. I know Rebecca has been in a slump lately. Hang in there, girl. You'll get back to the winning ways. But, yeah, I still like Guillermo to win this bracket.
Yeah, he's definitely the favorite to win it. So it'll be, if he gets upset, that'll be something fun to talk about next week. Moving to quadrant C. This is my quadrant, and I've got a tough task ahead of me and Tossin Lake. He was able, if you guys checked out the live stream last night that Supun hosted, Tossin was able to knock off Bryce. I was able to squeak by Matthew Escueda, and Dan Warner pulled off what I thought was an upset over Peyton. I know a couple of you guys picked Dan to win it. You did. But he pulled off that win, and then Nicholas Sloan was able to defeat Bill Barnes. What's your biggest takeaway from that bracket overall?
This is all 4 of the ones I picked. I do think that you are up for one of the biggest challenges that you could possibly face with Tossin in a equal playing field. I actually played Tossin in a practice match before this tournament started, just to kind of get my equal candidate afoot going. It's been a while since I've done this. This is my first roundtable, and he kicked my socks off of me. So I think that I probably would pick Tossin, but I know you've given lots of top players good games. That'll be really interesting. I know you are also alive in the World Cup still, right?
Yeah, I've got a match in the World Cup coming up. The opponent slipped my mind, but I have Tossin in Chad Harris's 270.
It's not Richard, is it?
It's not Richard. I defeated
Rashav.
Richard. David
Robinson.
That's
Robinson.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
David's a great player.
He's going to be a tough challenge for that one. I've got Tossin. This is the first time we've ever had a match. So I've got him here in the round table. I've also got him in Chad Harris's 270. Sweet 16 is what we're down to now. So in that one, he's playing as Ben Carson, and I'll be playing as Elon Musk. So that'll be interesting to see.
Well, Tossin likes the Old South, if you weren't aware.
I've heard it, and so I'm thinking should my strategy be combat him there or to work around it, because that's how I pulled off the win in the World Cup with George Fry. I got Michelle Obama, and I just went a totally different, just left along the Old South and was able to win there. So I may try that specific strategy on Tossin and see how it works.
It'll be interesting. And yeah, Dan and Nicholas, two great players. I did pick Nicholas, and I'm going to stick with that pick. And I do think that if you're unable to beat Tossin had better not overlook Nicholas Sloan. He is a giant killer. And even though he could lose to anybody, he can also beat anybody. So,
right. Well, I'm going to pick against myself here. I'm going to pull one of your strategies. I'm going to say Tossin will probably defeat me. And yeah, I like Nicholas. We're in another group together, but I'm going to give Dan Warner, since he knocked off Peyton, I'm going to give it to Dan Warner. So we'll see what happens there in that matchup.
Yep. And shout out to Dan Warner for hosting the multiplayer Flash tournament. That's a great tournament. I checked out that stream yesterday, and it was a ton of fun. So good job on that, Dan.
Group D, this was dubbed the Death Quadrant. Tyler DeMora, Rick Whitmore, big names in there. They pulled off their wins over Tyler beat Anderson, who hosts the World Cup. So thanks for joining my tournament. I'm always glad to have Anderson in my tournaments. And then Rick pulled off a win over Dylan Hales. I think we all pretty much had that as consensus in our first video. Eduardo Ochoa, or as you say, Zero Spender, first turn. He pulled off his win. And then Siraj came back in style and got a convincing win over Tom Criswick. So I don't think anything out of this bracket was out of the ordinary. I think that was pretty we all have the same ideas that would be the result of those matches.
Correct. And I picked Tyler DeMora to beat Rick in the second round of my original prediction. I'm not saying I want to change my prediction, but Rick is in pretty good form as well. And I could see him winning this entire quadrant. Siraj, I think, should take care of Eduardo if I, was a betting man, which I am. But yeah, no, kudos to Eduardo for getting past Timothy Yates, and especially kudos for Rick bouncing out Dylan Hales in the first round. Dylan is also still alive in the World Cup. He went 5-0 in my World Cup grouping and is playing some of the best 270 that he's played in his career. So definitely shaping up to be the group of death. The D stands for Demora, not death, but but yeah, should be interesting. If I had to pick a winner right now, I'd pick Siraj just because of the path. But no, I really like what Rick's doing these days.
Yeah, I agree. Rick he's a fantastic player. Would like to see Tyler knock him off since Rick put me out last year, but I think Rick's gonna pull that one. And Siraj, I think, will come out. So it'll be Rick versus Siraj. I'm going to give it to Rick to win this quadrant.
Awesome. Quadrant E.
Quadrant E, this is where we had our biggest upset of round one. As you notice there, the top spot, Jason Casey, the beast of the lounge, was knocked off early by James Bandelin. James advances over him, and it was a close match. But Jason did lose and go out, so a lot of people are going to be shocked to see that, or relieved to know that Jason Casey is no longer a threat. So however you look at it, he's gone. James with the win. Zach Richwalski pulls off his win. And actually, I faced him today in just a public lobby match, and he beat me there.
What's his username?
Z Richwalski.
Okay.
So I was in there, and I made the mistake of trying to battle him for African American, and I got on the losing end of that, and he pulled away with it. So congratulations to him. He's a tough competitor. And then Richard Altfeld pulled off his win over my friend Kyle. And then Colton Conroy pulled off his win over Chase Small. So congratulations to Colton and to Richard. Richard's a great player. Probably, now that Jason's out, Richard's up there. I mean, he has the probably the veterans advantage over all these guys.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be anyone's region when it was kind of tabled as Jason's quadrant to lose. I like Colton, taking on Richard. That'll be a good matchup. I think that, Richard's kind of the name that people know. Colton kind of been making a name for himself in the college basketball tournament, some of these team tournaments. He's on my team. He's been given, he's been going up against players who maybe I might consider to be a tier above him and either closely losing or pulling off an upset. And so that'll be a good matchup. I don't know much about Zach, but I will say that, if I ever did beat Jason Casey, which it's been a while, I would be on an emotional high. And James Balin's got to look out for that, where he doesn't, go into a game maybe taking something for granted because, he just beat one of the best players in the game, take his eye off the prize, and then Zach beat him in the second round. So I know James is really good at state chasing. He's also really good at pivoting back from swing states back to the Old South. And so, in this type of format, it pays to be unpredictable. And I'm going to take Zach just off of, the unknown. And but kudos to James Bandelin for doing something that I have not been able to do, and that's beat Jason Casey. I'm going to pick Colton, and I'm going to pick Zach in this, what has turned out to be a wild quadrant E.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against any of these guys, but I'm going to pick James simply because he just knocked off probably the biggest threat in the entire tournament. And I'll pick Richard simply because I don't know a lot about Colton. And I've faced Richard 2 times in the past week, and he gave me a very good run. So I'm going to pick Richard and James to go on to the finals and tournament.
One quick shout out to Richard because he did take a pretty extended break, and the fact that he is performing so well in this tournament so far and in the World Cup just goes to show how good of a player that Richard Altfeld is.
Right. I mean, and he's not only good in 1v1, but he's a killer in multiplayer, which I've never been able to really develop a game style for multiplayer. I'm pretty much solid 1v1, and so when you're multiplayer, or you can play 1v1, that just shows how great he is at any level that he plays. So shout out to him. Quadrant F has tonight's, main event for round one in Javier, the defending champion, taking on Daniel Warren. Daniel Warren is not a pushover. I know I like to give him a hard time a lot, but he's going to give Javier all he's got. Part of me says I hope Daniel Warren wins to knock off Javier. I've never beaten Javier, so I'd like to see Daniel Warren advance there. But, my gut says Javier is going to win this one. And if he does, he's going to have Tyler Barola, who won his round.
I was wrong about that. I picked Conrad. Good job to Tyler Barola for stepping up and making me look foolish, which is not hard to do. But
that'll be a good match no matter who wins between Javier and Daniel. I mean, Tyler Barola he's a threat, so you can't look past him. Micah Moen pulled off a win over Andrew Miller. I'm not familiar really with either of those guys, so congratulations to Micah. He's got a big task. He's kind of like in my spot with Tossin. He's got a big challenge in front of him with David Robeson. And so I'm going to give it to I think Javier is going to win our marquee match tonight. And then I think Javier will take out Tyler Barola, and I'm going to pick David Robeson to go on to the finals there.
Yep. So David Robinson, he's a great player. He is playing you in the World Cup, right? I think that I am going to pick him to win his World Cup match against Daniel Smith. A little bit.
Very possible.
But I'm actually going to pick Micah to pull the upset here against David. Micah, I have only limited exposure, but I've been extremely impressed with what I've seen, screenshots, people talking him up. And I'm gonna roll with, as they say, stay in the flames. He's hot right now. I'm gonna roll with Micah, and I agree. Javier probably gets past Daniel Warren, but just like old times, there's some things you just can't quit. And no, I won't pick Daniel Warren. I'll pick Javier. But Javier versus Tyler Barola, like you said, Javier is the defending champion, and until he is dethroned, I don't see, until maybe he faces off against George or someone like that, he might not be the favorite. I'm going to pick Javier to continue to win in this quadrant and eventually take down Micah to advance to the end of the quadrant.
So a quick question, just going to put you on the spot here, and I've wondered this myself. With I've had a couple of matches with Jason, a couple of matches with David, and those matches they always use Michelle Obama's or the high-powered candidates. Do you think they're having a bit more trouble or having to maybe think through things a little differently because they aren't using their high-powered candidates here? Do you think that's why? First of all, Jason is defeated, and secondly, you're giving Micah the advantage or the edge over David.
So 3 things. So first off, to talk about Jason, I'm not going to take anything away from what Jason has accomplished or anything. Yes, it's a totally different game, and I do think there might have been an impact. I also just think that James Bandlin played a heck of a game and, earned the win. So Jason is still a top 2-3 player in the lounge. This isn't going to change anything. I mean, you look at his overall body of work, at the track record and his tournaments of, this candidate or that candidate. I will say that he has that AA game down to a,
Absolutely.
And so, when you get an Obama or someone that gets that $150, $1,000 per turn, that's almost insurmountable when you give it to someone like Jason. So when you even the playing field, it can, open up different paths, whether that be saving money, whether that be fighting for a Latino bonus or an ag and an export bonus, some of those lower bonuses that don't come into play all the time. But I know, speaking from my experience, I played, we're going to get there to, a little bit with Dennis Muxlow. Dennis Muxlow, out leveraged me to several key bonuses. And while I wasn't fully in control, I was comfortable where I was, but that was because, all of the bonuses weren't these astronomical bonuses. It was more playing the EV game versus, the whoever gets the most bonuses. So it's a different game. I do think that my limited exposure to David Robinson, he loves playing as the Stone. He loves playing as Michelle Obama, 2 fantastic candidates. He's a fantastic player himself. And so, I'm only picking against him because I've been super impressed with Micah. It's not something against David, but I am encouraged. And I think that his performance in this tournament, playing as someone who is a non-Michelle Obama, non-Stone, that's going to even improve what I think of David going forward or any of these players.
Right.
So it won't hurt Jason, but it might, raise the stock of someone else who's able to make a deep run in this. It speaks to the Javiers and the Tossins, the George Fries, how consistent they are, how they don't need that candidate. I'm encouraged that I was able to win round 1, but it's just one game, and so you want to see the consistency of it. So I'm looking forward to taking on Jeffrey Bobowitz here in the second. I've only played him 1 or 2 times ever. It's always been super close, so I will favor myself in that matchup, which – I normally do the reverse psychology, so maybe I'm jinxing myself here. But no, it'll be a good game. I look forward to it. I definitely could lose to Jeffrey. but I am confident in the game I've been playing more recently. And then, like I said, shout out to Dennis Muxlow. He did beat me for the first time ever last night in Tyler DeMora's 270 Coliseum stream, which was super cool. You should check that out if you haven't seen that before. But I didn't know it was Dennis, and I went for a risky Florida steal. Probably wouldn't have done that if I knew it was Dennis. But that's how the game goes sometimes.
Right.
Have you played Dennis before?
He was in the World Cup seed with me, first round. So we played once, and I beat him there. But yeah, he's a great player. That one game, I mean, it could have went either way, really. But I think it was just he didn't know my style, I didn't know his style, and it just happened to work to where my style was a bit more aggressive. That's something I've been working on in my game is, I heavily rely on swing states, but I've been learning to work around and not rely on swing states, not rely on Florida. And I try to pressure heavily because I noticed in the games where I'm facing veterans, late in the game, early in the game, they keep consistent pressure on me. That way I have to spend money where maybe I shouldn't have to spend it. So that's what I've been trying to do is put a lot more pressure early on people and see if that'll, rattle them to where I can pivot and, build elsewhere while they're defending what they think I'm going to take away. So that's a learning thing for me. But, yeah, Dennis is a great player from the one game I played with him. I'll pick you over Jeffrey simply because I don't know a lot about Jeffrey. So I'm going to, stick with what I know. Jeff Ray, I mean, like I said, I think he's one of the greatest of the game. I think he's going to pull off a win over Zach, and then I think it'll be you and Jeff, and I'm going to give it to what I know best, and I'm going to give Jeff this quadrant.
Oh, well, I'll try to prove you wrong, but it could happen. Jeff Ray, shout out to Jeff. He did beat Aaron, and Zach Algaze taking down Hasib. That was probably the either myself and Dennis or Zach and Hasib, the first round match of this bracket. I think I picked Dennis and Zach, and I'm sticking by my Zach Algaze pick to beat Jeff. I do think that I would rather play Jeff than Zach personally. I think that both players could easily beat me, and it's not that Jeff's game is predictable, but I'm more comfortable in this format playing against Jeff's game than I am against Zach. You're talking about the pressure and it's a tough time going against Zach. You almost have to play a near perfect game. And so for that reason, I'm going to take Zach Algaze. I wouldn't be shocked, obviously, if Jeff wins, but if it is me versus Zach, I might have to take Zach.
It'll be interesting to see. In our last quadrant is quadrant H. We've got some big names there. Richard Gadd was able to move past Chad Harris, and Darby lost to Cassie. Both players I think nobody really knew, so they're two relatively unknowns. But congratulations to Cassie for knocking off Darby. And then Supin, our season one champion, narrowly made it past Will Vanisdale. I want to say that was a 293 win for him, so not a huge blowout. So he had trouble getting past Will, but Will's a good player. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a good player. I've locked horns with him several times in the past. And then Joshua Neptune, the other big upset of this round one, taking out Eric York. So congratulations to Joshua for knocking off one of the, probably top 10 players right now from how Eric's playing. He's going to have trouble with Supin, I believe. And like you said in our first stream, Supin he's consistent. He knows the game. He's been around. He's one of the OGs, number 3 on the leaderboard. He's going to make it past Josh, and I think Richard's going to have an easy time with Cassie. So looking forward to Supin versus Richard. I'm going to say that's going to be a good game, but Supin's going to take this quadrant.
Not so fast, my friend. No, I agree with you. I think it'll be Supin Lianaj winning the bracket, but Richard has an easier path than most folks going through Cassie. Cassie is an improving player. Hope she continues to get some coaching and instruction from some veterans, but I do expect Richard to win. I do want to say that Will, he did have the willpower, just not the brain power to beat Sapun. So no, and Eric York, fantastic player. Glad he was in this tournament. It makes the field that much greater. But Joshua Neptune, I don't really call that a huge upset. Josh is underrated. He's in the RHL White House, as is Eric York, and so he finished second in my division in the RHL. So I know how good Joshua Neptune is. I still would pick Sapun Lienage especially in this roundtable type format. Although Joshua Neptune, I compare him a lot to you in my mind as far as the game that they play, the strategy. So if it was Sapun versus Daniel Smith, it could go either way. And if it was Sapun versus Joshua Neptune, it could go either way. So I'm gonna stick with my original prediction and say Sapun wins this quadrant over Richard Gadd, but that's why you play the game.
Exactly. And I have a new looking forward to the second round. So it's broken down as, the top two there, quadrant A. I think that the top match there is going to be the match of the week, Bart Childers versus George Fry. I think the winner of that match will probably go on to the semifinals, if not represent the whole tournament and win the whole thing. Who do you got in that match, George?
So this is a hypothetical. If the top two win.
Yeah, I'm talking about it. Just real quick recap: who's going to win the match? And
yeah, okay. So I picked George.
Yeah, I got George there. I picked Grayson to upset Owen there in the second one.
Yep, and I picked Owen, and we both picked Jeremy Cooper Sperber.
Guillermo, I think we both picked him, although that's going to be a good match because I have played Michael before and he beat me in our only match. Well, I think we played a couple of times, but the last time we played, which was about 2 weeks ago, he was able to beat me pretty convincingly. So shout out to him.
I think Guillermo takes it in a blowout, and I think that Tossin wins in a relatively close game. I think he probably extends his lead like bigger on the ballot. Maybe it looks a lot more of a blowout than it really was, but I think you can hang close with him. Tossin is so passively aggressive. He picks his spots, and I was watching that Bryce stream last night, and I was pulling for Bryce because Bryce is a buddy, as is Tossin, but you always root for the underdog also, and Bryce has had to play Tossin several times, so I was rooting for Bryce, but didn't quite get it done. I did pick Nicholas Sloan, and you picked Dan Warner.
Dan Warner.
And then I did reverse my pick. I originally picked Tyler DeMore. I'm sticking with Rick Whitmar, but that game could go either way. And then we both have Siraj.
Siraj. We both you picked Zach from the high of James's, but I picked James there to knock off Zach. And then the next one as well, we're different there. I've got Richard and you've got Colton.
Yep. And then I've got Barolas playing the winner of Javier and Daniel Warren. We both have Javier tonight.
Yep.
And then we also have Javier advancing to the next round.
Right. I'm going with David there, and you've got Micah, so that'll be another interesting one to see.
I would say that I probably should pick David, and that's not a disrespect to David. These prediction videos, you want to make some kind of a stance, and
right.
I going to put my foot out and pick Micah.
Right. Well, it was just like the round one. Nobody picked against Jason. So, it could happen. And this is the best format where upsets can happen that you don't think is going to happen. Moving on, I've got you over Jeffrey. I know you favor yourself, but I think it could go either way. And it could. I just don't know a lot about Jeffrey's gameplay, but I'm going to pick you there. I've got Jeff. You've got Zach. Mm-hmm. And then Richard over Cassie. And Supin over Joshua. So it'll be fun to see how those matches take shape. Round 2 starts tomorrow, and we'll be wrapping up on Saturday, January the 9th at 9 p.m. Central. So hopefully everybody will get their matches in, and we'll have a good time with that. Tonight is the matchup between Daniel Warren and Javier. It's going to be live streamed at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So tune in the lounge if you want to see that matchup of two big lions going at one another. Anything else you've got?
Nope, but that's 7 p.m. Central. I'll try my best to be in the stream. And I appreciate you running this tournament. Appreciate you hopping on doing a predictions video. And I'm liking my chances a little bit more without a Jason Casey, but I still see plenty of big names. And, even if I don't make it very far in this tournament, it's a loaded field. And whoever does take this down is definitely going to feel worthy as a champion of the Roundtable Season 3.
Absolutely. So looking forward to week 2. And thank you again, Brendan, for hopping on and doing the videos. And if you haven't checked out Brendan's YouTube videos, check out, subscribe, and you're going to learn a lot. Thanks, Brendan.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.